One night, to forget her pain, she gave her first time to a millionaire who never let her go. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. It was one of those cold New York nights when the city seemed to sigh beneath the rain. The kind of night when the neon lights blurred against wet glass, and every stranger looked like a reflection of your own loneliness. Harper Lewis sat at the far end of the bar, her fingers tracing the rim of an untouched glass of whiskey. She had promised herself she would never drink again, but tonight, promises meant nothing. She had spent the morning signing divorce papers. 2 years of fear, of bruises hidden under long sleeves, all sealed inside one envelope. When she handed those papers to her lawyer, she felt both free and hollow. So here she was, 26, alone, and desperate to feel something other than pain. Another round? The bartender asked gently. Harper nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Make it something strong. I want to forget everything tonight. Bolung. At the other end of the bar sat a man in a black suit, posture straight, eyes fixed on the melting ice in his glass. His name was Cole Whitman, 34, a millionaire in the media business. To most people, he was ruthless, untouchable. But tonight, his mask had cracks. His father had just passed away, leaving behind a family empire built on ambition and silence. The press was tearing him apart, accusing him of being heartless. Maybe they were right. When Harper's gaze met his, something unspoken passed between them. No words, just two broken souls recognizing each other through the noise. She moved closer, the sound of her heels drowned by the storm outside. Mind if I sit? She asked. He looked up, surprised, then nodded. Free country. They sat in silence for a while. The jukebox hummed an old jazz tune, and for the first time that day, Harper's breathing slowed. She told herself she was not doing anything wrong. She was not looking for love. She just wanted to forget. Cole watched her hand tremble as she lifted her drink. Rough night? He asked. She gave a dry laugh. More like a rough life. Something in her tone made him stop pretending to be fine. Then maybe we both came here for the same reason, he said quietly. To forget. The rain outside thickened. The bar emptied. When they finally left, it was close to midnight. The wind was cold, but his hand was warm when it found hers. No promises. No names. Just two strangers walking side by side through the wet streets of Manhattan. In the dim light of the penthouse elevator, Harper caught her reflection mascara smudged, eyes tired, heart already breaking for something she could not name. He looked at her like a man who had forgotten how to feel and was suddenly remembering. That night, neither of them said a word. It was not about lust. It was about silence, warmth, and the illusion that maybe, for a few hours, they could escape who they were. When morning came, sunlight leaked through the curtains. She found herself alone in white sheets that smelled faintly of cedar and whiskey. On the nightstand lay her dress, neatly folded, and beside it, a note written in firm handwriting. You deserved peace, even if only for a night. Harper read it twice, her throat tight. Then she left quietly, not knowing that the man from that stormy night would find her again and would never let her go. The morning after that storm felt colder than it should have. Harper walked through the quiet Manhattan streets, her coat pulled tight, her hair still damp from the mist. She kept replaying the night in her head, the warmth of his hand, the silence between them, and that note on the nightstand. She had told herself it was nothing, just one night to forget. But forgetting never came easy. Her shift at the photo studio started at 9. The place was a modest second-floor space above a bakery, the kind that always smelled like coffee and sugar. She worked there part-time, editing photos, handling clients, trying to make rent. Her dream had once been to open her own studio, but dreams were expensive, and reality did not wait. By 10, she was focused on her computer when the door chimed. She looked up and froze. Cole Whitman stood at the entrance, still in a suit, his presence impossible to miss. The same calm eyes, the same controlled posture, but now they looked directly at her. Mr. Whitman, her boss said, hurrying out of the back room. It is an honor to have you here, sir. Cole's gaze did not move. I am here to see her, he said simply. Harper's stomach dropped. She stood slowly, trying to look composed. What are you doing here? He stepped closer. lowering his voice. "We need to talk." Mundo's, her boss, wide-eyed, mumbled something about checking invoices and disappeared into the back. Cole handed her a folded newspaper. His photo covered the front page. Whitman Media faces board pressure after CEO's father's death. Below it was a smaller headline, "Rumor of secret engagement surfaces." Harper frowned. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I need your help," he said. "They are expecting to see my fiancé at the annual board gala in 2 weeks. The problem is, I do not have one." She blinked, unsure if he was joking. "Then find someone else, a model, a celebrity. Why me?" Cole studied her for a long moment. "Because you are the only person who has nothing to gain from this. You do not belong to my world. That makes you believable." She crossed her arms, trying to ignore the sting of his words. "And what exactly are you offering?" He pulled a slim envelope from his jacket and placed it on the counter. "Enough to pay off your debts, and enough to buy time for whatever it is you are chasing. In return, you will pretend to be my fiancé for 1 month. You will attend 5 events with me, live at my penthouse for the duration, and when it is over, you will walk away." Harper laughed softly, a bitter sound. "That is insane." "Maybe," he said, his voice steady, "but I think you are desperate enough to consider it." His words hit deeper than she wanted to admit. Rent was overdue. Her ex-husband's lawyer was demanding more settlement money, and last night's quiet peace had already turned back into noise. She took a slow breath. "Let me think about it." "You have until tomorrow," Cole said, then turned and left, leaving the smell of rain and expensive cologne in the air. That night, Harper sat in her small apartment surrounded by unpaid bills and half-finished sketches. The envelope he had left lay unopened on the table. She thought about her father, who used to say, "You cannot rebuild your life until you stop running from the wreckage." By morning, she made her decision. She arrived at the Whitman Tower, 50 floors of glass and steel, her heart pounding. The receptionist smiled politely and led her up to the top floor. Cole was waiting near the window, the skyline glowing behind him. "I assume your answer is yes," he said without looking away from the city. "It is," she replied quietly. "But I have one condition. You do not get to treat me like property. This is business, nothing more." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, surprise, maybe respect. "Understood," he said, and extended his hand. When she shook it, the city lights reflected off the glass behind them like sparks. Later that day, she signed the contract. 4 clauses written in perfect legal language. No emocional involvement, no sharing personal details. 5 public appearances. Termination after 30 days. Simple on paper, impossible in life. As she left his office, Harper glanced down at her reflection in the elevator doors. The girl staring back looked calm, almost confident, but inside her pulse raced. She had stepped into a world she did not belong to, a world of diamonds, boardrooms, and cameras, and the man who had once been a stranger from a rainy night was now her fake fiancé. As the elevator doors slid shut, Cole watched her go, a faint unease crossing his usually unreadable face. He told himself it was just business. But even then, something deep inside him whispered that he had just made the most dangerous deal of his life. The next morning, Harper returned to the Whitman Tower to finalize the agreement. A team of lawyers and assistants were already waiting, their eyes cool and professional. The contract was printed on heavy paper, every line precise, every word designed to protect Cole Whitman's image. She sat across from him in the conference room, sunlight pouring through the glass walls. He looked immaculate as always, dark suit, silver cufflinks, the calm of a man used to control. But when he spoke, there was a quiet edge beneath his tone. "Before we begin," Cole said, "let us make something clear. This arrangement is about image and stability. It will last 30 days, no more. During that time, we will appear as a couple, attend events together, and live under the same roof. There will be cameras, questions, and rumors. I need you to handle all of it with composure." Harper nodded, though her palms were damp. "I understand." He slid the contract toward her. "Read every clause before signing. My lawyer can clarify anything you find confusing." She glanced through the pages. It was all there exactly as he had described. Clause 1. No romantic involvement. Clause 2. Maintain confidentiality. Clause 3. Attend all 5 scheduled events. Clause 4. Contract terminates on day 30. There was even a final line written in Cole's own hand. Neither party shall blur the boundaries between business and emotion. Harper looked up. "You wrote this last part yourself." I have learned to be specific, he said. Ambiguity ruins empires. Her heart thudded, but she signed her name anyway. The pen shook slightly in her hand. When it was done, Cole extended his hand again. Welcome to our arrangement, Miss Lewis. She met his handshake, firm and steady. Then I suppose I am officially yours for 30 days. A faint smile touched his lips, but his eyes remained unreadable. Later that afternoon, Harper was escorted to his penthouse by one of his assistants, a woman named Marcy who spoke quickly and smiled rarely. The elevator opened to a world Harper had only seen in magazines: marble floors, glass walls, a view that made the whole of Manhattan look small. This will be your room, Marcy said, showing her a guest suite overlooking Central Park. You will be expected to attend etiquette sessions, wardrobe fittings, and media rehearsals. Mr. Whitman prefers punctuality. Harper managed a polite smile. Of course he does. When Marcy left, the silence was heavy. Harper walked to the window, staring down at the city below. It looked like another universe, fast, polished, untouchable. She felt both excited and terrified. That evening, Cole arrived home from a meeting. She was in the kitchen, awkwardly trying to make tea in a space filled with machines she did not recognize. You know there is a chef for that, he said from behind her. She turned, startled. I like doing things myself, old habits. He leaned against the counter, watching her. You will have to unlearn a few of them. People will expect a certain image. Meaning? Meaning you are no longer a waitress or a studio assistant. For the next month, you are Harper Whitman, soon-to-be wife of a millionaire. You need to look and act the part. His words stung more than she expected. I may not have your money, Mr. Whitman, but I do have dignity. Something in her voice made him pause. For a second, the mask slipped, and he seemed almost human. I did not mean to insult you, he said quietly. I was reminding myself what this looks like from the outside. She poured the tea, her movements slow but steady. You do not have to remind me. I know exactly what I look like in your world. Cole did not reply. He simply took his tea, nodded, and left the room. But later that night, as Harper unpacked her small suitcase, she found a note placed on the dresser in his precise handwriting. Do not lose yourself trying to play someone else. The world already has too many masks. She stared at the words for a long time. It was strange he was the one obsessed with control, yet he understood her more than anyone had in years. The following days moved fast. Stylists arrived with racks of dresses, makeup artists studied her face, etiquette coaches corrected her posture. Every moment was practice for a life that was not hers. Still, at night, when the city quieted and she caught glimpses of Cole pacing his study with a glass of scotch, she began to see a man more haunted than arrogant. He rarely slept, and when he did, his light stayed on, as if darkness itself refused to trust him. One evening, during a media training session, the instructor asked her to describe Cole in 3 words for a mock interview. Without thinking, she said softly, lonely, brilliant, guarded. Gutcher. Cole, who had been standing nearby, froze for a second. Their eyes met, and the air between them shifted. He said nothing. But that night, when she returned to her room, she found another note waiting. 3 words for you: strong, honest, unexpected. For the first time, Harper smiled. The contract might have rules, but her heart was already starting to ignore them. And though she did not know it yet, every rule they had written was about to be tested in ways neither of them could control. The transformation began the next morning. Harper woke to the sound of quiet footsteps and the low hum of conversation outside her door. When she stepped into the living room, 3 people were already waiting: Marcy, a stylist with sharp eyes, a makeup artist with a soft smile, and a public relations coach who carried a clipboard like it was a weapon. Cole entered moments later, his tie loosened, his tone brisk. We are running out of time. The gala is in 4 days, and the press will be watching. Let us get started. For hours, Harper sat under bright studio lights while fabrics, shoes, and accessories surrounded her. She tried on dress after dress until one finally made Cole pause. It was deep navy, with clean lines that framed her shoulders and made her eyes seem brighter. That one, he said quietly. It looks like you. Arr. She blinked, surprised by his softness, but said nothing. The etiquette sessions were harder. She learned which fork to use at a formal dinner, how to hold a champagne flute, and how to glide through a room without looking lost. Cole occasionally observed from the corner, his gaze analytical but not unkind. When she made a mistake spilling a bit of water, tripping on her heel, he hid a smile behind his hand. "Do not laugh," she muttered once, cheeks flushed. "I am not laughing," he said, though his eyes betrayed him. "You just remind me of someone who used to try too hard to fit in." "Who?" she asked. "My mother," he said after a pause. "She grew up poor. My father never let her forget it." The words hung heavy in the air. For the first time, Harper saw the small cracks in his armor. He was not just a man born into wealth. He was someone who had spent his whole life proving he deserved to keep it. That night, they practiced their first public appearance. The penthouse staff played reporters, and Marcy simulated camera flashes. Cole took Harper's hand, guiding her through a mock red carpet. "Smile, but not too much," he instructed. "Lean in slightly when you speak. Remember, people do not care if it is real. They only care if it looks real." His hand was steady against hers, warm, certain. She met his eyes and whispered, "You are surprisingly good at pretending." "Number." He looked back at her. "So are you." When rehearsal ended, Harper stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker like a million tiny secrets. She thought of how strange it felt living someone else's life, wearing someone else's dress, pretending to be loved by a man who barely knew her. And yet, every time their eyes met, something real flickered beneath the surface. Later that evening, Cole knocked on her door. "You did well today," he said simply. "Thanks. I am learning to survive your world." He hesitated before speaking again. "My world is not worth surviving. It just looks better from the outside." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he turned to leave, but before he did, he placed something on her dresser, a small velvet box. Inside was a ring. "It is a prop," he said, reading her expression. "The engagement needs to look believable. Wear it whenever we are in public." Harper lifted the ring. It was simple, elegant, nothing like the flashy stones she had expected. "It is beautiful," she said softly. "I did not choose it for beauty," Cole replied. "I chose it because it felt honest." When he left, she slipped the ring onto her finger and caught her reflection in the mirror. For a long moment, she could not tell which part of her life was real anymore, the struggling photographer from Queens, or the woman who now wore a millionaire's ring. In the quiet that followed, she whispered to herself, "You wanted to forget your pain, Harper, but maybe you have walked into something you will never forget." Outside, the city buzzed, and in the distance, thunder rolled again like an omen of everything waiting to unfold. The night of the gala arrived with a chill in the air and a storm gathering over Manhattan. Harper stood before the full-length mirror, adjusting the navy gown that had become her armor. Her hair was swept into soft waves, her makeup flawless, yet her stomach churned with unease. She was about to step into a world where everything was performance, and every smile was currency. Cole appeared in the doorway, dressed in a black tuxedo that looked like it had been made for him. For a moment, he simply looked at her, his usual confidence faltering. "You clean up well," he said quietly. She smirked, though her voice trembled. "You make it sound like a surprise." "Lou," he offered his arm. "Shall we give them a show?" The ballroom at the Grand Lexington Hotel glowed with chandeliers and music. Reporters lingered near the red carpet, their flashes cutting through the air like lightning. As they entered, Cole leaned close and whispered, "Just stay close to me. Let them believe what they want to believe." She nodded, forcing a smile as the cameras erupted. "Mr. Whitman, is it true you are finally engaged?" one shouted. Cole's hand tightened gently on hers. "Yes," he said smoothly. "I found someone worth the wait." The words sent a strange flutter through Harper's chest. She had told herself it was all an act, yet hearing him say it so calmly, so convincingly made her heart stumble. Inside the ballroom, champagne flowed, and laughter filled the space. Harper felt every eye on her, studying, judging, measuring how a girl from Queens fit into a millionaire's life. She did her best to mimic grace, but her hands trembled as she reached for a glass. An older woman with diamond earrings approached, smiling thinly. "So this is the fiancé," she said. "Tell me, dear, how did you and Cole meet?" Harper froze. The question was harmless, but the truth was not an option. Before she could stammer out an answer, Cole stepped in, his hand resting gently on her back. "At a gallery," he said. "She was taking photographs for a charity event. I fell in love with her perspective before I even saw her face. Gumball." The woman laughed lightly and moved on, leaving Harper stunned. Cole turned to her. "That was supposed to be your line," he murmured. "You saved me," she whispered. He smiled faintly. We make a good team." The evening went on, and Harper began to relax. She found herself laughing genuinely at his quiet jokes, responding naturally to the rhythm they had created. It felt real. But the moment of peace did not last. Near the end of the night, a journalist pushed forward with a microphone. "Mr. Whitman, one question," he said. "Your company has been accused of hiding layoffs while funding this event. Some call it hypocrisy. How do you respond?" The crowd hushed. Cole straightened, his jaw tight. Before he could speak, Harper stepped forward. "Every company faces hard choices," she said clearly, her voice cutting through the silence. "But tonight is not about power or profit. It is about giving back. People forget that behind every business are humans trying to do the right thing." The room fell silent for a heartbeat, then applause broke out, first polite, then genuine. Cole looked at her, astonished. After the event, as the crowd thinned and the music softened, he found her alone on the balcony, the city lights flickering below. "You handled that beautifully," he said. "You did not just save me. You owned the room." She shrugged lightly. "Maybe I just told the truth." Low. He studied her for a moment, then asked softly, "Was any of it real? Tonight, I mean." She met his eyes. "I do not know," she said. "Maybe pretending is easier when it feels right." For a long second, neither of them moved. The distance between them shrank, not with words but with something deeper, something neither of them had planned for. Then Cole whispered, almost to himself, "Be careful, Harper. You are breaking every rule we wrote." She smiled faintly. Maybe the rules were never meant to last. Inside, the music played on. But on that balcony overlooking the glittering city, two people who had promised to feel nothing began to realize that pretending had become impossible. That night, long after the last guest had left the gala, Harper could not sleep. She sat by the window of her room in the penthouse, still wearing the navy dress, her hair slightly undone. The city glimmered below like a restless ocean. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Cole's face on that balcony, the way his voice had softened when he warned her not to cross the line. But something inside her had already crossed it. The next morning, breakfast was quiet. Cole sat at the long marble table, reading the newspaper, pretending to focus. Harper poured herself coffee, aware of the silence stretching between them. "About last night," he began without looking up. She froze, her fingers tightening around the cup. "If you are going to say it was just an act, do not bother." "I know." He set the paper down. "It was not just an act. That is the problem." Their eyes met, and for a moment, the room seemed to lose its air. Cole exhaled and leaned back. "There are things about my life you do not know, things that make getting close dangerous for both of us." "Then tell me," she said softly. "I am not scared of the truth." He looked away, staring at the skyline. "My father's company was built on image. He married for business, raised me to do the same. I swore I would never become him. But every move I make pulls me closer. When he died, he left me everything along with his enemies. The board expects perfection. They are waiting for me to fail." "So this fake engagement," Harper said, "is your shield?" "Yes," he replied. "And somehow you turned it into something real." The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. For a man so controlled, his vulnerability felt heavier than any confession. She wanted to reach for him, to say something kind, but instead she whispered, "Maybe real is what you have been running from." He looked at her, then really looked at her, and something broke open between them. Later that evening, they found themselves alone on the rooftop terrace. The wind was cool, carrying the faint hum of traffic below. Cole leaned against the railing, his sleeves rolled up, his expression unguarded. "Why did you agree to this arrangement, Harper?" he asked quietly. "You could have walked away." She hesitated. "Because I needed the money at first. But then I stayed because I wanted to understand you, the man who hides behind perfection." He smiled faintly, a rare, genuine smile. "You are dangerously honest. And you are afraid of what honesty might change," she replied. A pause. Then he said, "Maybe you are right." The distance between them vanished, as if it had never existed. His hand brushed hers, slow and unsure, as though asking for permission. She did not pull away. When he finally kissed her, it was not staged or convenient. It was the kind of kiss that stripped away every pretense, every rule they had written. When they broke apart, Harper's voice was barely a whisper. "What happens now?" Cole looked at her, his eyes softer than she had ever seen. "Now we stop pretending." The words hung in the air, fragile and dangerous. For the first time, Harper felt that the contract they had signed no longer existed, not on paper, not in the air between them. It was just two people standing beneath the city lights, finally willing to admit the truth they had both tried to deny. But in a world built on lies, truth always came with a price, and neither of them had any idea what that price would be. The morning after the rooftop kiss, Harper woke to an unfamiliar stillness. The sunlight filtering through the curtains felt softer, warmer somehow, as if the world had briefly stopped demanding explanations. She reached for the velvet ring box on the nightstand, tracing its edge. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe that everything was real, that Cole's eyes had meant what they said, that his hand on hers had been more than an act of impulse. But peace, in Cole Whitman's world, never lasted long. By noon, the headlines had already begun. Whitman Hare's fiancé exposed. Is Harper Lewis really who she claims to be? Dozens of articles appeared online, complete with grainy photos of her old apartment, her former job at the photo studio, even a quote from her ex-husband hinting that she was after money. When Harper saw the first article, she felt the air leave her lungs. She stormed into Cole's office, where he was already surrounded by his public relations team. "What is happening?" she demanded. "Who leaked this?" Cole's jaw was tight, his expression unreadable. "We are investigating," he said calmly, but his tone was clipped. "The damage is already spreading." "Damage?" Harper's voice cracked. "You make it sound like I am the problem." He stood slowly, his eyes hard now. "Because you are the only one with something to gain from this. My enemies would not know half these details unless someone inside this penthouse told them." Her heart twisted. "You think I did this?" "I think coincidence is a luxury I cannot afford," he said coldly. "Tell me I am wrong." She stared at him, stunned. "You do not need me to tell you, you just need someone to blame." He turned away, his silence louder than any accusation. Harper felt tears sting her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You once said I was honest," she whispered. "Maybe that scared you more than a lie ever could." Without waiting for an answer, she slipped the ring from her finger and placed it on his desk. "You can keep your contract, Cole. I am done pretending." By the time the elevator doors closed behind her, the first drops of rain were falling again. That night, Cole sat alone in his office, staring at the ring she had left behind. Marcy entered quietly, holding a printed report. "We found the leak," she said. "It was Mason. He sold the story to the tabloids." Cole froze. "Mason?" "Yes," she confirmed. "He has been working with a rival firm since your father's death." The realization hit him like a blow. Every word Harper had said replayed in his head, each one cutting deeper than the last. He stood abruptly, knocking over his glass. "Find her," he said. "Now." But Harper was already gone. She had packed her things from the penthouse, vanished from the city without leaving a trace. Outside, the storm that had been building for days finally broke, pounding against the windows like punishment. Cole pressed his palms against the glass, the city lights distorted through the rain. For the first time in years, he felt powerless not because of a business loss, but because he had destroyed the only thing that had ever been real. In a world obsessed with appearances, he had chosen suspicion over trust, pride over love. And now, the silence she left behind was louder than every camera flash, every headline, every lie he had ever told. Cole Whitman, the man who had everything, realized he had just lost the one person who had never wanted anything from him except the truth. For 3 days, Harper disappeared from the city. She turned off her phone, shut down her email, and rented a tiny room above a cafe in Brooklyn. The walls smelled faintly of old books and rain. She spent her mornings sketching by the window and her nights staring at the skyline in the distance, wondering if Cole was still looking for her or if he had already moved on. The tabloids eventually lost interest. Another scandal replaced her face on the newsfeed, yet the silence left behind felt heavier than noise. She had thought leaving would bring peace, but peace without closure only felt like another kind of prison. Meanwhile, in the Whitman Tower, Cole had become a man possessed. The moment he learned Mason was responsible for the leak, he fired him, but it did not fix what truly mattered. Mason's confession confirmed that Harper had been innocent all along. Every sleepless night since then had been filled with the same thought. You did not trust her. Marcy found him in his office one evening, surrounded by piles of photographs. "What are you doing?" she asked softly. He held up a framed photo one from the charity gala, Harper smiling as the lights reflected in her eyes. "She took this," he said quietly. "She captured moments the world would have ignored. I was one of them." Marcy hesitated before saying, "There is a charity art auction next week. The coordinator said one of the featured collections is called The Unseen. The photographer's name is Harper Lewis. Cole froze. Where? Brooklyn, Marcy said. She submitted anonymously, but the style, it looks like hers. 2 nights later, he arrived at the small community gallery. The walls were lined with Harper's photographed street corners, reflections in puddles, faces of strangers caught mid-smile. But in the center of the room hung one photograph unlike the others, a candid shot of him, standing on the balcony at the gala, staring into the distance. The caption beneath read, "A man who built walls higher than his own heart." "Yoon, sir?" Cole's throat tightened. He approached the curator quietly. "Did she say if she would be here tonight?" The curator smiled. "She is in the back room, setting up the last frame." When Harper turned and saw him, her expression froze. "How did you find me?" "I never stopped looking," he said simply. "I was wrong, Harper, about everything." She crossed her arms, her voice low but steady. "Apologies do not erase betrayal, Cole," he nodded. "I know. That is why I am not here to erase it. I am here to make it right." He handed her an envelope. Inside was a letter on company stationery, a public statement clearing her name, admitting his mistake, and naming the real source of the leak. "I already sent it to every major outlet," he said. "You do not owe me forgiveness, but you deserve the truth in the open." For the first time since leaving him, Harper's eyes softened. "You did not have to do this." "Yes, I did," he replied quietly, "because for once, I wanted to do something real." She looked down at the letter, her fingers trembling slightly. Around them, her photographs glowed in the soft light images of strangers who had found grace after heartbreak. Cole stepped back, giving her space. "If this is goodbye, I will understand," he said. "But if there is even a small chance you still believe in us, meet me at the place where it all began tomorrow night." Harper said nothing. He turned to leave, his footsteps fading into the hum of the gallery. That night, she stayed long after everyone had gone, standing before the photo of him on the balcony. The rain outside mirrored the night they first met, and though she did not want to admit it, her heart whispered what her pride would not. Some stories, no matter how broken, are not finished yet. The next evening, the city was drenched in rain again, just like the night they first met. Harper stood under the awning of the small bar where it had all begun, clutching a folded umbrella and staring at the empty street. She had told herself she would not come. She had repeated it over and over until her heart refused to listen. The door creaked open behind her. Cole stepped out of the shadows, his hair damp, his expression unguarded. He looked tired, but there was something different about him now. The arrogance was gone, replaced by quiet humility. "You came," he said softly. She met his eyes. "I almost did not. I would have waited anyway," he replied. They stood there for a long moment, the rain falling between them like a thin curtain of memory. Harper finally spoke. "You hurt me, Cole. Not because you did not love me, but because you refused to believe I could love you back without wanting something in return." He nodded slowly. "You are right. I spent my whole life surrounded by people who wanted my name, my money, my reputation. Then you came along and you wanted none of it. I did not know how to trust that." "Trust is not a transaction," she said. "It is a choice." Cole took a step closer, the rain soaking through his jacket. "Then let me choose differently this time." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, weathered box, the same velvet ring box she had once left behind on his desk. But inside was not the same ring. This one was smaller, simpler, the diamond replaced by a thin silver band etched with a single word: real. "I had this made the day after I lost you," he said quietly, "because everything else in my life was built on appearances, and you were the only real thing I ever found. I do not want a contract. I do not want a performance. I just want a chance to build something true with you." Harper looked at the ring, her throat tightening. "You do not owe me anything, Cole." He shook his head. "This is not debt. This is hope." The rain fell harder, pooling at their feet, and for a moment neither of them moved. Then Harper took a deep breath and stepped closer until she was standing right in front of him. "You once said I deserved peace, even if only for a night," she whispered. "Maybe peace is not about forgetting pain. Maybe it is about forgiving the person who caused it." Cole's eyes glistened. "Does that mean?" "It means," she said softly, taking his hand, "that you are forgiven. And maybe, just maybe, I am ready to start again." He slipped the ring onto her finger. No cameras, no contracts, just 2 people standing in the rain, finally stripped of everything false. As thunder rumbled in the distance, he pulled her into his arms, and she let herself fall into the warmth she had been running from since the beginning. Later, when they walked away from the bar hand in hand, the city lights shimmered like 1,000 second chances. In the weeks that followed, Harper's photo exhibition, The Unseen, went viral for its message about truth and redemption. Whitman Media launched a new initiative supporting independent artists, dedicated to the woman who taught me what real looks like. Low. And on the quiet rooftop where they had first kissed, the once prop engagement ring now sat in a glass frame beside a plaque that read, "One night to forget her pain. A lifetime to never let go." Because in the end, love is not written in contracts or promises. It is written in the choices we make when no one else is watching.